All right, so that's basically what the small intestine does. Again, it's very important that it uh, absorbs all those nutrients that we need in order to survive. All right. Large intestine is the next section of the alimentary canal, and it's about 5 feet in length, so significantly smaller, but it has a larger diameter of 2 inches. And then again, we have different sections of the large intestine. So we have the cecum, the colon, and the rectum, and we're going to talk about each of those. So the large intestine is going to get any remaining nutrients that didn't get absorbed in the small intestine, but most of the nutrients are going to get absorbed in the small intestine. The thing that the large intestine is mainly responsible for is absorbing water. So taking all that in so that we're not losing more water than we need to. So the cecum is this very small section, comes right off from the small intestine, and I think we're all kind of pretty familiar with an appendix, and the appendix hangs off on the cecum. So just as it's coming off the small intestine in the lower right quadrant of our abdomen, there's a little bitty section before it turns into the colon and it turns upward, and then there's a little dangly hang off, and that's our appendix. Okay, so the next section is the colon, and the colon is divided into three more sections. So we have the ascending colon, the transverse colon, and the descending colon, and it's going to look exactly the way it sounds. So again with this, so we have our small intestines that are in the middle of our abdomen, and it ends over here, and then we have the cecum, which is going to make a turn right here, and the appendix is going to cut off and dangle right there. And then we have the colon. So we have the ascending colon, which is going to go up, transverse is going to come across, and descending is going to come down. And then the next section is called the sigmoid colon, and sigmoid means S-shaped. So it's going to look like that. Okay. And then we actually get to the rectum, which is the end. So like that. Because the rectum is actually the last 6 to 8 inches, leads to the anus or the exit, and things get held there until you are ready to dispose of them. Okay. So looking at the accessory organs, so again we have the liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. So the liver is considered the largest gland of the body. It secretes different enzymes that are going to help with digestion. Liver does a lot of things, but mainly what I want you to know is that it secretes bile, and bile is going to be responsible for digesting fat. So getting the fat that we need in order to survive, which is good. I'm going to name off a couple of other things that the liver does, but again, what I want you to know is that it digests fat. So it's located under the diaphragm in the upper right quadrant of your stomach, of your abdomen. So it's a very big organ, and I think I have a picture, or we had the pictures before, I guess. But you can look in your book to see it better. So other things that the liver does is that it stores sugar. It can store iron and other nutrients. It's going to help with blood clotting, either to create blood clots so that we don't bleed out, or to create things that are going to dissolve blood clots. So it does both ways. it produces cholesterol, which a lot of people talk about how bad cholesterol is, but usually it's just because people have too much cholesterol, but it's essential for you to be living. So it produces cholesterol, which is a good thing, and it also detoxifies the blood. Um, so any drug or drug being anything over the counter or illegal, and alcohol is all going to get detoxified in the liver. So it's going to be our filter to clean the blood out. Okay, so those are all the jobs of the liver. Liver is a very important organ. Like I said, it's the largest one, and it is the only organ that can regenerate itself. So, you can cut a chunk out, give it to somebody else, and it'll regenerate itself. Pretty cool. Okay, so then we have the gallbladder, and the gallbladder is located up underneath the liver. So, oops, I did not want to do that. Sorry. This is so tedious. My goodness. Okay. So we have our person like so. The liver is up over here, kind of shaped like that. And the little gallbladder sits up underneath the liver. So if you can imagine that I'm up underneath it, sits under there like this. Okay. So it's going to store bile that's been created by the liver. So again, the liver is going to secrete bile to help us dissolve fats, and all of that extra stuff is going to be kept in the gallbladder. So that's the main job of the gallbladder, is just storing it. So that when you eat, your liver doesn't have to work so hard in order to create bile as you're trying to digest food at the same time. So a lot of people have had their gallbladder removed. It's not a vital organ. Again, it's just storing bile. If you have it removed, then the liver just has to produce bile as you eat because there's no place to store it. You may have to eat a little bit slower, but other than that, you're going to be fine without a gallbladder. Other accessory organ is the pancreas, and so it's located behind the stomach. So again, person, I'm not going to draw the arms this time. So we have the stomach here, like so, and pancreas sits back behind it. So pretend that this is behind. And it's kind of a long, tubey looking. I am not pressing the button, my goodness. Anyways, disregard this giant thing here, but pancreas is this little guy here. Okay, again, it sits behind the stomach. So it produces pancreatic juices, which is going to help digest our food. It's going to help digest sugar, proteins, and fats. It also produces insulin, which you may or may not be familiar with. Insulin is going to help us break down glucose. Glucose is our main source of energy, and glucose is just a fancy term for sugar. So insulin is going to regulate how much sugar we have in our bloodstream. And you may or may not know that diabetes is when people cannot, their insulin does not regulate their blood sugar very well. And we'll talk about that when we get to diseases and abnormal conditions or whatever. But so it's just going to regulate how glucose is broken down so that our body can use it as energy as needed. So those are the accessory organs that go with the main